find that actually the first thing, the best way, absolutely 100% to raise money is through customers. Now, this is an interesting, answer to the question, because you asked me, how do you raise money? But I throw it back to an entrepreneur and I say, how do you build something that you can sell? Because if you can build something that you can sell quickly, you won't actually need to raise money. And some of the most powerful startups and biggest startups today started with that approach.
Welcome everyone, I'm your host Chantal Broderick and thank you for joining me for a special edition of the Fitness Business Podcast. You're listening to the MotionSoft Technology Series with interviews featuring speakers from the 2018 MotionSoft Technology Summit. Have you ever wondered what it takes to launch a new product or service into the market? Or how to raise capital, or even what options exist for entrepreneurs who are looking to raise funds? Well, today we're going to explore all of these areas and more. Our special guest for today is Raj Sareen, the CEO and co-founder of Styku. Now, if you haven't yet heard of Styku, it's a 3D body scanner that works in conjunction with an app to give fitness professionals the ability to perform a full body scan, view 3D models, extract measurements, track changes in body shape, calculate fitness and health metrics, and much more. During today's interview, Raj shares the startup story of Styku and their early days entering the market. He gives us advice on where to start when you're launching a new product or service, how to raise capital during a startup phase. He helps us understand the term venture capital and angel investor. Plus, he explains accelerator programs and the opportunity that they can offer new business startups. Now, before we transition into my chat with Raj, I do want to tell you a little bit about our special guest because he has a career history unlike anyone we've had on the show before. Raj is an entrepreneur, he's a scientist, and he's an inventor. He has a Bachelor of Science in Space Sciences and a Master of Science in Physics. His journey included stints at NASA, where he spent time working in the shuttle program, and later the Astrobiology Institute for the study of biomarkers. Having come from a family of entrepreneurs, Raj later made a career change and joined his family's software business. Having gained valuable skills in imaging and sensing technologies, he then went on to invent several pioneering 3D imaging systems for lifestyle businesses. So now you know a little bit more about our special guest. Let's dive straight into this week's interview.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
I started by asking Raj to tell us about the early days of Styku and when they first introduced the concept to the industry, and here's what he had to say.
When we were building this technology and we were looking for industries where we could make an impact, of course, we found lots of markets where this scanner sort of technology really fits in. The clothing industry, plastic surgery, dermatology, the fitness industry. The fitness industry ended up taking hold of us because at the end of the day, we wanted to be selling into a market we truly were passionate about, we truly believed in. The first ever conference we went to was in 2015, was the URSA conference. Mm-hmm. And rather the URSA conference and exhibition. We were sort of a late edition. We were all that was left was a 10 by 10 booth at that point, and it was really on the perimeter of the entire, exhibition hall. And, we felt fortunate to be there. And one of the things that was striking to me was the quality of the people that came to our booth. And I don't mean quality as in how much money they had and, how willing they were to buy, and of course we did well with our technology there, but the quality of the values of the people that we met, right? You could see everybody that came to our booth truly was on a mission to help people. And that was inspiring, and ultimately we call it the fitness industry. We could call it anything we want, but every day somebody comes to work, it doesn't matter how much you pay them. They want to feel inspired. And they want to feel like they're contributing to humanity. And I felt what a great market to be in the company of people that are actually making a difference.
Raj, I feel like you hit the nail on the head there. I think perhaps you could give us a bit of an overview of how you work with fitness facilities to help their members by utilizing your technology.
Yeah, absolutely. Sure. So in a health club, in a nutrition center of some kind, in a weight loss center, in any kind of wellness business, the ultimate goal is to help people achieve, their goal, right? And to be healthier. And the tools by which we do that have been very rudimentary for the past, I don't know how many years, right? As long as the industry's, the birth of the industry. We're talking like measuring tapes and weight scales and calipers, right? People don't get very excited about using these tools because they're really one-dimensional, right? Your weight can be misleading. We all know that. You're losing fat, you're gaining muscle. Now your weight's not changing, and she steps on a weight scale and she's confused. She's making progress. And yeah, there's great body comp devices that are out there that help fill in that gap, and by shedding light on body composition and how it transforms your body. But it doesn't really stick very well, right? Because they're numbers at the end of the day. If you tell somebody they're 30% body fat, well, that's great news. It means I'm 70% non-fat, right? I mean, people don't have a scale built in. They're not taught what a healthy BMI is, right? These numbers are over their heads. So what we took a different approach. We said, look, is there a way to visually show somebody the progress they're making, right? And what we found was a couple of things. One, when you show somebody what they look like in 3D, and the way we do that is, of course, we put them on a turntable. It spins around 360 degrees. There's a harmless infrared camera that is projecting harmless infrared light. And, we're able to actually map their entire body with millions of data points and reconstruct their body shape in 3D. And it looks like them, right? And they look at it, they spin it around. This is not like gimmicky avatar. This is them. They recognize themselves. And one of the most powerful things when they do that is it humbles them, right? They've never seen themselves really from every angle, right? I don't know if you've ever tried. I think everyone's, sort of tried to look in the mirror, from each angle before and try to get a sense of what do I look like. And I always kid with people that, for every, 10 people out there, I'm sure 7 of them peek in the mirror before they jump in the shower. Right? I mean, we're all right. We're all looking for that, that visual data, right? That to help us track and track, really just keep ourselves honest about where we really are. And some people won't do it. Some people won't look in the mirror because they don't want to face reality, right? So when they do see themselves in 3D, it's a humbling experience. And what's really unique about it is it starts an honest dialogue with a trainer, with a nutritionist, right? Now you can really sit and talk about what's driving you to come here in the first place. And without that conversation, without that baseline, how can we grow? How can we move forward if we're not honest with ourselves about where we're starting from? And with a third of the population of the world obese, right? We got to understand we have a problem before we can try to solve it, right? So that's what you're able to do with our technology. You're able to show yourself in 3D, show your member what they look like in 3D, show your customer, your patient, what have you. And once we have that 3D model, then we can do a lot, right? Then we can take your waist circumference, your hip circumference, right? With a lot more precision and repeatability than you would with a regular tape measure. And it's funny enough, what you find is people resonate with these kinds of metrics, a waist, a hip, or thigh, because there's no explanation required around it. People know what a waist is. You don't have to educate them that, hey, this is what a waist is, like you do with body fat percentage. It's also a great indicator of fat loss or fat gain. So it turns out, the Greeks used to have a big saying, I don't know if you heard before, with the longer your waistline, the shorter your life. Well, modern science has proved that to be true. Adipose tissue in the abdominal region is the best metric for predicting, mortality and disease of any metabolic kind. So we're talking about cancer, diabetes, right? Heart disease, right? So the longer your waist, really the shorter your life. And it turns out that our predictive algorithms using AI can take a waist circumference and not just predict your body fat, but also predict your bone mass, predict your lean mass, right? So we don't just see the surface of your body. We actually can peer through and unlock all these mysteries about your body without being invasive. So that's been really sticky for the industry because it's a simple visual, great way to start a conversation, great way to validate that, hey, it's working, or even show somebody that didn't sign up for personal training that it's whatever they're doing is not working, right? And do so with ease, right? With simplicity. And really, it was an accidental discovery, but once we discovered that that had tremendous value in showing, somebody the progress they're making and realizing that progress is such an important KPI to the business, we felt we were on to something.
Having introduced Styku into the fitness world, I wanted to tap into Raj's experience in this area. So I asked him to share his advice on where to start when launching a new product or service into the market.
There's so much to entering a market. I think it starts really with, of course, making sure you've got product market fit, right? And so, before you ever attend a trade show, right, you just go down the street and find a business and, offer them a chance to test whatever that you're doing, right? And experiment with them. And you're asking the question obviously from the vendor side. So I'm thinking there are lots of different kinds of vendors. They could be selling, technology, they could be selling supplements, but absolutely experiment, test, right? I mean, any business idea is really a hypothesis. And I come back to the scientific method. The scientific method is how we solve anything in this planet. It's our approach for determining how much, water I need to put in the pool, before it overflows and my water bill goes up, or what do I need to set my thermostat to, or, how much time is it going to take me to drop my child off school? I mean, the way we think is the scientific method. We don't realize it. But so many times we get so in love with our idea, right? And we make assumptions. And we realize, okay, yeah, my idea is going to work if this happens, and then if this happens, and then that happens. And then we realize, oh, we've created a story by which we don't have any data to support. And the only way we really can support that data is going and talking to people, talking to customers, and testing things out. Now, trade shows are great for that because you have a chance to talk to hundreds of people within just a couple of days. But you can also just drive down to the street, right? Drive down the street and talk to somebody, or randomly, a lot of, I don't know how young your audience is, but there's phone books. In my days, we definitely picked up the phone book and just called people.
Are people still using phone books these days, Raj?
You know what? Maybe it's like, for firewood, right? But
sit on.
But I don't think they're using it to search customers, but you go to Yelp. Yelp's a great place, right? If you don't have a list, you don't need to buy a list of email addresses and contacts, and you don't need a CRM. You just need a little creativity. You go to Yelp, find a gym, go to the owner and say, hey, I got an idea, I'd like to test it. And 9 chances out of 10, you're going to find something wrong with the assumptions that you made. And it's much better to find those assumptions, find out where those assumptions were made and which ones are wrong before you go to market.
I think that last point is so important, because you are right. We can get so caught up in the excitement of the idea itself and start moving forward with this, what we believe to be a fantastic idea. But unless we test it out and we cross-check it against the people that are actually going to be utilizing it, then, we could be spending time going down the wrong path before we're making the right kind of tweaks and changes to that product before we should, in fact, be moving forward. And I think that is a beautiful segue to my next question, which is, once you have gone through that initial research and you've identified in your market, you've spoken to your potential customers, and you have worked out that, yes, there is in fact a market here for my new product or my new idea or my new service that I want to take to the industry, Do you have any advice around how you can actually go about raising capital or getting money together when you're in that startup phase?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, there's a lot of hype and excitement around venture capital. And, I'll tell you, there's two things about venture capital which will scare probably some of our audience, but in a good way. One is it's a high school popularity contest, right? And ultimately, it comes down to, how friendly you can be with that community, how many people really like and dig your idea, and whether there's somebody willing to be a leader and follow and not be a follower, really say, stand up on a soapbox and say, I vouch for this company, and then everyone else will just follow. It's not as, I would say, democratic or fair as people would think. Like, people really won't judge your business on the strength of the model as much as you think. And most companies don't raise VC capital, and most companies that do fail. So I think these are some important realities about venture capital. I say this to a lot of young entrepreneurs, and I end up seeing sort of a burst bubble look in their eyes. And there's a lot of TV shows. We celebrate, in pop culture, the idea of a startup, the entrepreneur, and raising VC capital. But the truth is, and the reality is, very few people do. And those that do, very few succeed. And we read about the unicorn. So, I would try to steer away as much as possible from venture capital if you're really just getting started as an early stage company. You find that actually the first thing, the best way, absolutely 100% to raise money is through customers. Now, this is an interesting, answer to the question, because you asked me, how do you raise money? But I throw it back to an entrepreneur and I say, how do you build something that you can sell? Because if you can build something that you can sell quickly, you won't actually need to raise money. And some of the most powerful startups and biggest startups today started with that approach. And you get to the point where it's working and you've got solid metrics. Yeah, absolutely. You're going to have a compelling story in the eyes of an investor. But oftentimes, pitching to investors and investing all that time takes you away from the real question, which is, what is the value I need to build in order to sell something to a customer? And any time that you're not spending time on that question, it won't matter how much you raise. I think a lot of entrepreneurs think they need a lot of money. And at the very beginning, they overestimate how much money they need at the beginning. And then once they grow, they underestimate how much money they need to continue to grow, right? I think there's a stage by which you do need to raise capital, or you do need to raise debt, or you do need to accelerate in order to reach the market demand. Otherwise, you have got competitors that are going to come after you. And at that point, I think entrepreneurs oftentimes underestimate when they need it and how much they need. But most entrepreneurs at the beginning overestimate how much money they need to build traction for their business, right? And if they do need some, there's always somebody in their network, maybe 2 or 3 steps away, that a family, a friend, an angel investor that can likely put money in and help supplant what you need, right, without giving up a boatload of equity, right, or control in the business, right? It's not as sexy as going to Silicon Valley, but at the end of the day, right, it's far more sustainable and far more likely profitable, right?
Raj, you've used 2 terms in that statement that I would love you to give us the simplest possible definition for anyone that's listening that is brand new to this and they're not familiar with these terms. Could you just really quickly define for us, first of all, venture capital, and second of all, angel investor?
Yeah, absolutely. So a venture capitalist is somebody that bets on a startup. And to really understand what a venture capitalist does and how they're different, it really comes down to how a startup is different than, let's say, a new business. You know, investment bankers do something very different, right? And investment bankers or investors in the stock market, they're all investing in businesses that are already established, businesses that don't have a lot of unknowns, right? They have a predictable revenue, predictable expenses. They understand their customer. They know how much to charge their customer. They understand the competitors and they understand the market and the market size. They're mature companies. Venture capitalists often work with entrepreneurs with ideas. Sometimes more than ideas, sometimes prototypes, sometimes more than prototypes, sometimes proof of concepts and case studies. But one common thread with all the companies they work with is they're operating in an environment of high uncertainty. Uncertainty about who the customer really is, right? Am I really selling to this market, or is this a better market? How much do I really charge? And is it a subscription model? Is it a pay-per-use model? If you were going to start a laundromat down the street, that's not a startup, right? That's a new business. And the reason is because there are not a lot of unknowns. You just open up the Yellow Pages if you still have them, or Google all the laundromats that are around, and you're like, okay, this is what the average price people pay, and this is how they market themselves. It's just copy paste and hopefully optimize, right? Get a great location, right? Use technology to remove friction in my business processes. But startups have very much more risk than that. Startups are fundamentally trying to innovate, and they have a hypothesis around what is innovative, but they don't know yet these fundamental things about their business. So venture capitalists will come in and they'll say, look, we believe that you're stumbling upon a green pasture, and this opportunity is very big, but you need startup capital so you can make mistakes, so you can learn about what's the right product, what's the right market, what's the right price. Because we know you don't know this yet. And it's going to take a lot of risk, a lot of money and a lot of failures to find it. An angel investor really isn't any different. An angel investor tends to not work through a fund, right? A venture capitalist will have gone and raised money from other investors, created a fund, and then the venture capitalist sort of gets a percentage of that fund, and they have a duty to then invest that fund in startups. It's actually a poor incentive model because although they get more money if that company does well, they get paid anyways, even if none of their companies does well. An angel investor risks their own capital, their own money. They're far more incentivized to make sure that you're successful. And so angels are definitely the route to go when you're first beginning.
They were fantastic explanations, Raj. Thank you so much. So just to give us an understanding, are they the only two type of investments or investors that we would have in a startup phase? Are there any others that we should know about?
Yeah, I mean, there are lots of different tools today. There are accelerators, which are a big part of the startup ecosystem today. I actually am an alum of a international accelerator called Techstars that has had over 1,600 companies graduate through its 3-month accelerator. An accelerator, for those that haven't heard the term before, the idea behind it, kind of like an incubator, is you take a bunch of companies, you put them in one big room, right? And you say, look, we're going to help mentor you. We're going to show you how to do that customer development, right? By calling that gym down the street and going and asking them to test your product. We're going to help you ask or answer those fundamental questions about your product and your market and your price and whatnot. We're going to even help you build your team. And we might even put some money in. We might even put in 100,000 or 200,000, sometimes even 20,000. Okay? And in exchange, you're going to give us a small percentage of your business. That's been a very popular model these days, accelerators. I'll give you an example. In the fitness industry, ClassPass and Fitbit, both of those companies actually went through Techstars' format, in the same format that Styku went through. And, look at the success of those companies. In fact, the companies that go through some sort of accelerators, not just Techstars, of course, is Y Combinator, there's so many of them that are out there today, they tend to have much higher success rates than companies that essentially don't go through the accelerator program.
If I'm listening to the show right now and I am in that stage where I've got an idea, how do I even access an accelerator program? How do I look for it? How do I speak to people that are involved to get my idea to be considered to go through an accelerator program?
Well, I believe Techstars is in, I want to say, 45 different cities around the world. I might not have that correct, so don't quote me on that. But certainly, they have widespread reach. They're certainly in all of the most active technology centers in the world, right? And so it's as simple as just getting on the Techstars website and searching for, a program that interests you. And you don't actually have to necessarily be in that city. That's the beautiful part of it. People they apply from all over the world. In fact, you don't actually need a prototype. You don't actually have to have the business profitable or even have revenue yet. Oftentimes they just bring on teams. They're usually looking for people that are very passionate about what they do and have the right skill set to execute. Most startups that come into the programs actually end up pivoting within the first, few weeks, maybe even it's a 3-month program. So maybe even during the 11, 12 weeks that they're there, they'll pivot, because most entrepreneurs don't realize that their idea is probably, has some holes in it, from what they think. And so Techstars, they tend to look for great founders, right? People with great stories, right? And if you're an entrepreneur from the beginning, you are unusual. Let's start there, right? When you meet founders, they're going to break your stereotypes, right? You'll see somebody and they won't fit a mold, right? And we don't celebrate that enough. And they look for people like that, right? You should be a little odd and you should be a little crazy to risk your own money or risk your own life, essentially, on an idea you believe in, right?
Yeah.
So they're looking for those leaders. And it starts there. And if you're that type of person, then you just go to a startup event. There may not be a Techstars in your area, but there may be there's definitely going to be accelerator programs near you. And you can find them. You can go to meetups and you'll find them. Just talk to people.
That is so great, Raj. Thank you. Well, look, I've just got one more question, and maybe you can sum all of this up for us. Perhaps you could finish off today by sharing your 3 tips to identifying an opportunity for a new product or a new service in the market.
I always say follow the friction. So, you'd be surprised to find that technology has not hit every single nook and cranny of every single business and every single customer journey. There's massive, massive opportunity when technology is not being used. And a great example is blockchain. Blockchain has the reason why people got so excited about blockchain is because it has the ability to transform so many industries. So follow the friction, find a real problem, right? They're all over the place, right? And there is always question everybody's assumption that it's not a problem, and everybody's assumption that this is the way we've done it. Why would we ever change it? Question that. Children are fantastic at questioning everything. We often lose that ability as we grow up. We start to accept the world around us and think that it's the way it's supposed to be. So to truly be a great innovator, you have to question everything. You'll find that there's friction in everything. And just believe in yourself that you can find another way. Don't listen to anybody else, right? Right? Don't accept anybody else's answer or standard for anything. Find your own answer, right? Find your own belief and use data to back it up.
Great advice. Well, Raj, thank you so, so much for chatting to me today. This has been I feel like we've taken quite a journey in our conversation, talking about those definitions around different types of investors and having a look at how you entered the market and a little bit about your background and some really great advice for people that are looking at a startup business or have an idea or that kind of seed of an idea that they want to bring into the market. So I want to thank you so much for your time, and also to remind everyone that we will, of course, put all of your contact details in the show notes so everyone can check out all of the information that we have been talking about today. So Raj, thank you so, so much for joining us on the show today.
My pleasure.
Join fitness industry peers from around the globe at the 6th Annual MotionSoft Technology Summit in Washington, D.C. You'll learn how the most successful operators in the fitness industry have implemented technology solutions and tools to improve operations, increase productivity, and exceed member expectations. Visit MotionSoftTechnologySummit.com today to register for the 2019 MotionSoft Technology Summit. Thank you for joining me for the MotionSoft Technology series. A reminder that you can find show notes and contact details for Raj and Styku all at fitnessbusinesspodcast.com, along with information about the 2019 MotionSoft Technology Summit. I look forward to seeing you for the next episode, and remember, what you leave behind is not what's engraved in stone monuments, but what is woven into the lives of others.